Imagine you're going on a hike with a few of your friends to the Grand Canyon. You've planned to spend the night, camp like Boy Scouts, and most importantly, have fun. As you're on the trail towards your destination, your fastest buddy, who loves to show off, is a few hundred feet ahead. Suddenly, you see him tripping, and just as he's about to hit the ground, he vanishes into thin air right in front of your eyes. What would you do? Would you trust your eyes or think of it as a hallucination? Well, that hike sounds all too familiar, but it went a little differently 126 years ago. James Byrne Warson was a kind shoemaker who lived in Leamington, Warwickshire in England. He had his own little shop where he created his own footwear and repaired the shoes of passers-by. He was a humble, honest, and respected man, but just like all of us, he had some negative traits that other people didn't appreciate that much. He enjoyed showing off from time to time, and he also loved challenging people into doing things for fun. On September 3, 1873, he and a few of his friends were walking around town, talking and having a laugh. Suddenly, an idea flashed into James' mind to play a game. Since he was a man who continually sought approval and loved attention, he thought of an excellent way to get his dose of recognition. You see, he was quite the athlete too, and that meant that he had the ability to showcase his physical skills to impress the town's residents. He decided to go on a match against nature. It was his strength and will against the odds of making it. What does that mean? Well, he was challenged by one of his buddies to run from Leamington to Coventry, and then run the whole way back again. It wasn't an easy task either, since the distance he had to cover was about 20 miles. To help you understand, it would have taken him 6 hours had he walked the whole way, and assuming he was running approximately 7 miles per hour. That meant he needed more than 3 hours to complete his journey. No, he wasn't Superman, and he would get regular breaks to catch his breath. Not one to shy away from a task, his bravery kicked in, and his reply was, "Challenge accepted." Even though he was confident that he could make it, his buddies had their doubts. I mean, he could have easily run to the countryside outside of Leamington, sat there for a few hours, and then ran back, pretending to be exhausted and out of breath. So, to make sure that wasn't the case, his friends decided to follow him. His challenger, whose name is still a mystery, got in the back of a cart wagon alongside his two other buddies, Barnum Wise, who was a linen draper, and Hammerson Burns, who was a photographer. And then the race began. James Warson was running with a steady pace, while his friends were following him with their wheels. He managed to cover several miles at an easy gait without even looking tired. He made the marathon seem like a piece of cake. His buddies kept some distance while following him, but not enough to lose sight of him, and they occasionally teased him as encouragement to keep him going. But you know what they say, all is calm before the storm. James kept running. His friends were about 36 feet behind with their eyes fixed on him, when suddenly the unexpected happened. It seemed like James had tripped over something, and he was about to go down. As he was falling headlong forward, he let out a loud shriek and disappeared into thin air. He never even touched the ground. He simply vanished. His friends were shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. The sight made one of them question their own sanity. Where could James have gone? All three buddies stopped, got off the wagon, and started looking for him. They were wandering around the area to see if they could spot him. Maybe he was pulling a prank. Maybe he was never there. Or perhaps he teleported. Nobody could explain this incident using logic. His friends were in utter shock. After spending some time trying to locate him without success, they began their journey back to Leamington. Once they arrived, they started sharing the unbelievable occurrence they'd just witnessed, explaining how their friend just vanished in front of their eyes as if he never existed. Now, if you heard that story today, you would nod your head in disbelief and assume that they must have done something bad to him. Well, that's also what the authorities believed back then, and they were arrested. The three men were taken into custody, and investigators began their interrogations to find out what happened. At first, they believed that the friends were responsible for James' disappearance. However, after a while, they had no evidence to support that. And since he was never found, they couldn't be prosecuted. The story made headlines, and people started coming out with theories about what happened. Some believe that those three guys were concealing the truth about how the events progressed out there. Some others believe that they were telling the truth. But others took a more surrealistic approach to explain what truly happened. Besides, the world and the universe were still a mystery in the 1870s. Some theories say that James accidentally entered a fourth dimension, which made him disappear. Okay, we all know that we use 3D to both explain and measure width, height, and depth. But what happens if we enter a fourth dimension? Well, you can't. Fourth dimensional space is a hypothetical direction in our 3D geometry. It's used by mathematicians to explain something using spatial dimensions. So a human entering an imaginary dimension couldn't have been possible. Another theory claimed that James had teleported. While he was running to get to his destination and win the challenge, he teleported to a different place, maybe even a different country. Does that mean he exceeded his capabilities and won the race? All kidding aside, even if people believe that teleportation was possible back then, it's certainly not possible now. However, quantum teleportation is a real and a very interesting phenomenon, but that's a whole different story. So, what truly happened out there? Could this be a figment of their imagination? The answer isn't that simple, and I'll get to that in a sec. This event was written about by Ambrose Gwinnett Bierce, who was a well-respected journalist and storyteller in the 19th century. The disappearance of James Worson was named The Unfinished Race, and it was published in 1888. There's no evidence that James Worson was a fictional character. Let's not forget that Bierce, the writer of the story, was usually investigating strange happenings, which is what gained him recognition for his excellent journalism. But here's where it gets interesting. We all know the saying that history repeats itself, and that's exactly what happened here. Ambrose Bierce, like James Worson, went missing, leaving no traces behind him. At the age of 71 to 72 years old, the famous writer traveled to Mexico. There, he met the revolutionary Francisco Pancho Villa and joined him as an observer. On December 26, 1913, Ambrose wrote a letter to one of his closest friends and fellow journalist, Blanche Partington. He narrated all his adventures to her, where he'd been and what he was up to at that time. Towards the end of the letter, he wrote, "As to me, I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination." That was the last time anyone ever heard from him again. There was even an official investigation about his disappearance, where a lot of Pancho Villa's men were questioned, but it was fruitless. After that, word got around that Bierce had disappeared, and with that, a lot of theories surfaced. One of them claims that he was last seen in the city of Chihuahua in Mexico around January of 1914. Another one says he'd never been to Mexico in the first place. One, in particular, indicates that Ambrose Bierce never even sent that letter to his close friend. This is based on the fact that his letter was never found. The only thing that existed was a notebook that belonged to his secretary. In that book, there was a summary of a letter and her statement that it had been destroyed before it was sent out. The story kept gaining more and more momentum. Despite the abundance of crazy theories out there speculating what happened to the writer who disappeared into thin air, just like his literary character James Byrne Worson, one thing is sure: his fate remains a cloud of mystery. So, what do you think happened to the journalist and the shoemaker? Do you think the author disappeared for his work? What about the three men in the wagon? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you learned something new today, then give this video a like and share it with a friend. But hey, don't go portatelling anywhere just yet. I mean teleporting. We have over 2,000 cool videos for you to check out. All you have to do is pick the left or right video, click on it, and enjoy. Stay on the bright side of life.